Hello, I'm Az here. Today we're going to be doing a low-key sampling session, first impression on a brand that is relatively new to me. I actually discovered it while I was browsing on the Javoy Paris website. I was looking to buy a fragrance that I've been eyeing for a while that is called Rose Millésime by the House of Javoy Paris. An excellent rose fragrance, almost sulfurful but with so many nuances. I'm going to be touching on that later on, but I grabbed a bunch of samples while I was at it. I was researching on the companies, different companies or brands that I've never heard of, and then adding into my cart. Ended up with a bunch of samples. Look at that, so many. So I'm going to be doing first impressions, and then the ones that pique my interest I'm going to be doing full review of. The brand that we're looking at today is called Oman Luxury. It's kind of interesting that they added the name Luxury in the brand name, but then I was looking at the background of the house, or how it is set up. It was kind of interesting because they work with some pretty impressive perfumers there. Now, the first perfumer that is mentioned on the website and then working with them is called Dominique Ropion. We all know who he is, from niche fragrances from the house of Frederic Malle to designer fragrances. Impressive experience there. And then there's a second perfumer that is called Jean-Louis Sieuzac. I hope I'm not butchering that, which has an extensive portfolio too. He did Bel Ami by Hermes, he did Opium, he did Dior Fahrenheit, also worked on Dune, I believe, and he did work on companies that later became Simrise and then Givaudan. For those who are not aware of those two, they're big companies that are working on flavoring and fragrances. So he has an extensive experience there. The third perfumer that I was not aware of, or I didn't know, is called Philippe Paparella. I'm sure I'm butchering the name there, sorry about that, but he has an interesting path. So he studied at ISIPCA, worked at Simrise, which is a big, like I said, big flavoring and fragrance company, and it also worked on a fragrance that you guys might be familiar with from the house of perfume Cortana, that is called Wolfsbane. So if you've tried that, you might be familiar with his style there. He also lived in Asia, so he has a cultural broadening there, and he loves to work with amber, woody or musky notes, and then also exotic fruit accords or notes, so which is pretty interesting there. He also worked on a fragrance brand called Hermetica. I'm not familiar with the house, but I think they're doing something innovative with alcohol-free type of fragrances. And then he's also worked on a house that is new. I have samples of here that I'm going to be touching on, that is called Noble Dynasty. So overall, on paper, it looks fantastic. They're working with great perfumers, but again, I'm curious to see what the fragrances are all about. Now, on to pricing. I see 5 fragrances on the official website retailing at $150 US each, and then if you go through Javoy, they're going to be priced at $132 inclusive of VAT. If you're from the US and you're ordering it, it's going to be 110 euros exclusive of VAT, so a little cheaper there. So overall, the pricing is not that bad. Again, we have to look at the fragrances and if they're worth it. So let's dive into that. So briefly, to touch on how the samples come from Javoy Paris, comes in the case like that, and then when you slide them, they're in there. So we're going to start with Overdose. So I'm going to be spraying it here, and then we're going to do first impression. Like I said, nothing serious, but to get like a fairly good idea of what the house is like. Oh wow, okay. So off the top of Overdose, what I'm getting is definitely a spicy green cardamom, and then some freshness coming from something like black pepper, and then citruses. Oh, the cardamom note is just amazing here. It is not too abrasive or too spicy. It's just soft in nature. Oh, this is going to be beautiful for spring and summer so far. Based on the opening. There's something else that is peaking, but not quite. I think it is the note of fig, where I'm getting that green lactonic feel to it, but it definitely some muted white florals in the background, so I'm guessing maybe jasmine. But it's really nice. The way it comes off as is like this slightly creamy, green, leafy, fig-like undertone. And on top of that, you get this fresh, peppery, green, spicy cardamom accord with a touch of bergamot. End of the day, let's do a follow-up on these fragrances, starting with Overdose. So what I got out of the opening was fresh black pepper, spicy green cardamom, and then some abstract white florals, but also a creamy green like fig core. As it dried down though, I also got the addition of something that was woody and a thin sandalwood core that is more led by the cedar-like facets, and it's a thin sandalwood core, and that paired with the creamy fig core adds this slightly creamy green tinge to the thin sandalwood. The pairing is really nice there. As it evolves, I get a beautiful contrast that starts out really nice, but as it evolves though, I did not like it. The contrast that I got in the dry down was warm sea air. Now, the contrast is beautiful with the sandalwood and the creamy fig, but then as it evolves, I get slightly fishy tone added to it, and I did not like that. My wife did enjoy it because she said it reminded her of an authentic smell walk by the beach or whatever. For me, I did not like that slightly hint to that fishy part. So I'm not sure I'll be wearing this one again, like doing a full testing. I might if I'm in the mood, but for now, the dry down didn't work out for me. Next, we're looking at Wanderlust, and then we're gonna get the top here. Okay, wow. Okay, I'm getting something woody, definitely citruses, but something that is sweet spicy, but green leafy as well. Okay, I'm getting something woody, like cedarwood, with something that is leafy green, that is reminiscent of blackcurrant. I'm not a fan of that note. The first time I experienced that, I think it was by Enchanted Forest, and I didn't like that because it smelled pissy. Here it is more fruity, so it has like that tart but a leafy green fruit accord here, and it's really well done. It smells more natural. There's a slightly musky undertone as well. It doesn't strike me as something interesting so far, but the theme of the fragrance sounds like something that is going to be great for spring and also summer because of the blackcurrant accord with the citruses, bergamot, I believe. So far, what I'm getting out of Wanderlust is this light, airy, green, leafy, slightly tangy, fruity blackcurrant note, along with some bergamot with a woody undertone and a musky undertone. That's pretty much what I get so far. Now, in the dry down of Wanderlust, that's where things got a little bit interesting and grabbed my attention. Like I said in the opening, I wasn't quite impressed by it. It was blackcurrant dominant with a set of citruses and a little bit of cedarwood in the background. As it evolves though, the addition of incense is what actually added dynamic to the fragrance and kind of made it really interesting for me. And then also I get a spicy, thin, leathery accord that is coming from saffron. Together, the addition of incense and then the saffron-like facets to the blackcurrant, the green leafy accord is really interesting. Something that can work really well during spring. So it's something that I'm going to do a full wearing of testing and then see if it's something that I will buy or not. Next, we're looking at Samahram, and this one doesn't have a perfumer listed on their website. Oh, okay. From here, this is a strong fragrance actually, and then what I'm getting out of this one, without even getting my nose close to it, is sweet candy caramel. This one has a Middle Eastern vibe to it. Okay, it was really sweet, but now I don't smell it as sweet. When I get close, I don't get it that intense of a sweetness there. Okay, I get something that a candy, a soft, sweet caramel-like vibe to it with a slightly spicy, rosy touch to it. So I'm thinking there's a floral aspect that reminds me a little bit of geranium. There's a little bit of spicy accord to it, but I don't know what that note is. I can't pinpoint what it is. There's something dark in it, woodsy, but also dark, like almost like incensey and leathery, but not quiet in the background. But then that is almost buried by that caramel smell. candy caramel with geranium attached to it. So I'm curious to see how this one is gonna develop into. But so far, I don't think it's something that I'll go for. In the dry down of Samahram, things got a little bit interesting, but not to the point where I see myself with a full bottle. The more it dried down, though, the more I enjoyed it. Now, in contrast with the caramel sweet core, I mentioned that I get leather, but also slightly dirty facets attached to it. Now, the dirty facets are actually coming from honey after I looked at their note breakdown. And then what I enjoy in the dry down is because the sweetness from the caramel is then contrasted with darker tones. The leather, the incense core coming in slightly smoky, woody, but also the dirty animalic feel that is coming from the honey note. That contrast makes it more enjoyable rather than having something that is sweet and linear like in the opening. So I did enjoy it as it dries down. Now in the mid somewhere, I got something that was soapy, rosy that did not sit well with me. I didn't like that part, but it didn't last for a long time. For an hour, I got something that was soapy, rosy attached to it. The more it dried down, though, it becomes drier and drier with the leather, darker tones there, the leather, the dirty animalic honey, the incense, and then the slightly smoky facets attached to it. And then that's pretty much it. But then you also get the sweetness throughout. So people that are fan of the style in some of the Zerjoff Oud Star where the pair slightly darker animalic facets with sweet tones, you might like this one. So although I'm not going to get a full bottle of this one, I think is complex enough to warrant a full wearing and testing, and I'm going to do a review on that. Next, we're looking at Paramour, and then this is done by Philippe Paparella. Okay. Okay, spicy, sweet, rosy opening. So I get citruses, I get rose. It is not a dark rose, but it's not also a light rose. It's in between. Okay, there's a leather undertone to it. And a little bit of patchouli. There's a woodiness, slightly earthy feel to it with the rose and then leather. And then spices at the top. So far what I'm picking is just leather, rose combo, semi-dark rose, a dark black leather, and then a little bit of patchouli darkening things out, and then a little bit of spices, a little bit of cinnamon that I'm getting out of it. That's pretty much it. Now in the dry down of Paramour, things didn't pick up. I didn't find it interesting either. So at the opening, like I said, I got a fruity dark rose accord. The fruity accord actually comes from raspberry after I looked at the note breakdown, and I can definitely see that, and it's paired with a black leather and patchouli. Now in the dry down, what I got was a set of soft, spicy, woody, spicy accords, but that's pretty much it. Now think about soft spices, black leather accord, but then with the raspberry fruity undertone to it. It did remind me a little bit of a variation of Tuscan leather, or more closely the Clive Christian version that smells like Tuscan leather. I don't remember exactly what the name is, but it did remind me of a variation of that genre, but then it's kind of muted compared to the other ones that I've tried. It's kind of quiet. I didn't pick up much, so I don't see myself going for that one, but I'm curious to see after doing a full day of wearing or testing what I'm really getting out of this one. But if it ends up being this quiet and then this simple, I don't think I'll go for a full bottle. Last but not least, we're looking at Oud Aquilaria, and then this one is by Dominique Ropion. So I'm running out of real estate here, so I'm gonna go on paper strip and then later on maybe put it on skin. Okay, so what I'm getting out of this, there's a fruity undertone, spicy, rosy like accord. So I would say pink pepper. There's definitely an apple note here. I tend to not like apple accords because they usually come off sharp. In one of the, I think it's Angelique by Boudicca de Victorious, the opening is horrible. And I think it's part due to the sharpness of the apple accord that is there. But in the dry down, Angelic is beautiful, but the opening, I did not like it. It's just chaotic. Here, the apple note is just soft, crisp, but then not too sharp. And it's paired with that slightly rosy pink pepper spice there. Beyond that, I'm not getting anything else. This one uses an Oud Aquilaria, which means it's not an oud oil. Is reconstructed or putting together materials and trying to get as close as possible to an oud profile. I'm not getting anything out of this one. Let me see if I can get more if I spray it here. Same thing, I'm not getting much out of like the oud note that I'm looking forward to, maybe in the dry down. Like I said, nothing wow so far. And I'm gonna wait in the dry down to see if there's any oud that comes to life. So now in the dry down of Oud Aquilaria, I'll finally pick up an Oud Aquilaria. So if you remember the opening, I didn't quite get anything. It was mostly the fruity, crisp green apple with the pink pepper. That's about it. And then about 30 minutes in, I started getting the Oud Aquilaria, and I must say it's pretty good when I compare it to other Oud Aquilaria that I've tried before. This one has subtle nuances, nothing that is going to be barnyard. It's more of a woody balsamic oud that has facets of something that is almost tobacco-like, leathery, hints of something that is almost incensey. I also get something that is reminiscent of dry vetiver. So you get this clean type of nuances in the Oud Aquilaria that is pretty nice. And then you can classify it as Oud Aquilaria when you smell it. And then paired with that, I get the crisp green apple Aquilaria that is quite lasting, because in the dry down I still get the apple Aquilaria. But I'm going to go ahead and then test this and then see if it's something that I can recommend to people, because I really like the nuances, the clean, wearable nuances that he has in his Oud Aquilaria here with the crisp green apple. I think is different there. So I'm going to do a full wearing on that, and I'm going to come back with a review to let you know if it's something that is worth getting. At 150, if it turns out being a good performer, and then I get more of the nuances, I think it might be worth it. So I would test that and I'll come back with a review. Now, this concludes my first impressions on the house. 5 fragrances, a lot to wear in one sitting. Actually a lot to keep track of, but at the first pass it gives you enough details to know which ones you want to further investigate and then try and do full wearings off. With the amount of samples that I have, there's no way I can wear each of them fully and then test them. So first pass, you grab my attention. I dedicate a little bit more time to study it. So at this point, based on my collection and what I've tried so far in my fragrance journey, I would say the one I'm most interested in is the Wanderlust one, the one that has the blacker and dominant Aquilaria in it. The others are nice. They sound a little bit deja vu for me. If you're starting your journey and you're looking for niche fragrances, I think their pricing is really good, and then the way they blend the fragrances is really good as well. Overall, good house. Nothing that I'll go out of my way to try to get at this point because of the point at which I'm in my fragrance journey right now. If you've tried anything from the house, let me know what you think of it. Again, thank you for watching. Please comment, rate, and subscribe, and take care. Bye.